We're going to bring another storyteller up here right for you now. Thanks a lot for listening. And we're going to welcome to the mic Mr. Jim LaChapelle. You're in for a treat. Jim LaChapelle, let's hear it.
We are also here to represent Pre-Apple Storytelling Festival, which this year is a year of stories all over this area of Central Mass, where apple picking and stories have been a tradition for 30 years, although stories have certainly been a tradition since people have been a tradition. People have been telling stories to each other to understand their lives, to understand the world, to entertain each other. Story is the way human beings think and entertain themselves. If you think about it, it's a movie, it's a book, it's a story first. So please welcome Jim LaChapelle.
Well, hello everyone. I'm glad you're here out in the open air enjoying all this family time. This is great. Love it. Now this story that I brought here for you is called The Fat King. Now, there once was a fat king, and he had a skinny prime minister. Now, this fat king and the skinny prime minister loved to go out on a royal jaunt out into the royal orchards to gather royal apples off of the royal trees. So they would go out and they would gather these apples and put them in a basket, and they'd bring them back to the royal cook, who would then make all sorts of good apple treats for the king and his prime minister. Now the king, this fat king, his favorite thing to do was to sit out on his balcony eating apple muffins with honey all over them. Oh, it was so good. Well, one day, some of the honey from the king's muffin dripped down into the street below. The prime minister jumped up and he said, "Oh, look at that! Honey all over the street. Don't you think we should do something about it?" The fat king, he just sat back and he said, "We have servants to clean up that sort of thing. Besides, it's not our problem." Well, not long after, a little ant came marching down the street and saw that honey. It went over to it and it slurped it up. It was really good. But the prime minister, he looked down and he said, "Oh, look at that! The honey is attracting ants. Don't you think we should do something about it?" Well, the fat king, he thought about it for a moment, and he said, "It's not our problem." Well, not long after, a lizard came running down the street and saw that ant. When it ran over to it and slurped it up with his tongue, honey-coated. Ooh, it was good. And the prime minister, he looked down and he said, "Oh, look at that! Don't you think we should do something about it?" The fat king, he took another bite of his apple muffin, and he said, "It's not our problem." Well, a cat came prancing down the street and saw that lizard. It ran over to it and pounced on it and began to play around with it a little bit there. And the prime minister, he looked down and he said, "Oh, look at that! Don't you think we should do something about it?" And that fat king, he looked down and then he said, "It's not our problem." Well, soon a dog came running down the street and saw that cat. Well, the cat started growling and scratching at the dog, and the dog started barking and going after the cat, and soon it was a terrible cat and dog fight. And the prime minister, he looked down and he said, "Oh, look at that! Don't you think we should do something about it?" And the fat king, he said, "It's not our problem. Well, the owner of the cat came running over. She picked up her cat, pushed away the dog, and she said, "Bad, bad dog." The owner of the dog came running over. He picked up his dog, and he said, "Bad, bad woman with a bad, bad cat." "Bad dog, bad cat, bad dog, bad cat." And they started fighting back and forth. The Prime Minister looked down and he said, "Oh, look at that. Don't you think we should do something about it?" The Fat King, he said, "We don't take care of domestic quarrels. Besides, it's not our problem." Well, the owner of the cat and the dog were making so much noise that a crowd of people gathered around. Some of the people sided with the cat, and they began to chant, "Cat, cat." And some of the people sided with the dog, so they began to chant, "Dog, dog, cat, cat, dog, dog, cat, cat." Oh, the Prime Minister looked at it, he said, "Oh, look at that. Don't you think we should do something about it?" And the Fat King, he said, "You know, the army will be marching by soon. They'll take care of it. Besides, it's not our problem." And do you know, the army did come marching by, and they saw all that was going on. They came by and they quieted everyone down and began to listen to what they were arguing about. And some of the army sided with the dog. Yes, the dog. And some of the army sided with the cat. "Oh, no, 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 no. Cat. Huh? A dog. Cat, dog." And the army started fighting back and forth amongst themselves. And then the whole crowd of people joined in. "Cat, cat, dog, dog, cat, cat." And the cat and dog started fighting again. And within all that was going on, nobody noticed a fire that had started. And it burnt the entire town and castle to the ground. And within the smoldering rubble, the Fat King just sat there and he said, "Well, I guess it was our problem." And that's the story of the Fat King. Oh, thank you. My name is Jim LaChapelle. I'm a storyteller from Wilmington, Mass. And I'm part of a group here called Massmouth. And we're here with Three Apples, the Storytelling Festival. It is now a traveling festival, so be sure to get the dates of where we're going to be next. Are they down on the table? I know they're on the website. Website is?
www.3apples.
Well, besides Three Apples, you can surely find us there, but Massmouth. What? Really? Massmouth.ning. N-I-N-G. Ning. I've never heard that one. All right, good.